Hello, and welcome to this episode of Experience Matters, our series focused on customer experience, employee experience, and how delivering on both of these can represent significant competitive advantages for organizations of all sizes. I'm your host, Shelley Kramer, Principal Analyst here at Kramer&Co, and our topic today is centered on breaking the App-Sprawl cycle and exploring how Zoho One's unified workflows are also changing the game. My guest today for this conversation is Taylor Bachman, who's Senior Evangelist at Zoho. Welcome, Taylor. I'm so glad to have you.
Hi, thank you, Shelley. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for
Absolutely.
having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to explore the thinking behind the latest evolution of Zoho One, the industry forces that are shaping this moment, and how enterprises can reclaim focus and efficiency and value in a world of ever-changing digital complexity. So to set the stage here a little bit, it's absolutely not news that we are at an inflection point in the business software landscape. This inflection point is defined by tool sprawl and rocketing SaaS spend and teams struggling to stay productive as their workflows scatter across dozens of disconnected applications. I can see you nodding while listening, so I know you get it. But seriously, the strain on organizations is real.
Yeah.
Fragmented data and endless context switching and AI features that are often layered on top rather than built into the way people actually work all play a role here. So in this episode, we're unpacking what it looks like to move beyond that chaos and toward a more unified, human-centered approach to software design. Taylor, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm born ready for this. Yeah. This
All
is
right, let's go for it.
all about. Yeah.
Let's go for it. Okay, I love to always start this show by asking my guests to just explain, to walk us through your career journey, your backstory, if you will.
My backstory is a non-traditional one and sort of weird. I went to college. I thought I was going to go to graduate school to do a PhD in literature and study books and philosophy that no one really cares about. And instead, I ended up taking a job at Zoho, a company I didn't really know much about that I got connected with through the university. And for the last 10 years, I've held various roles doing various things across product and corporate marketing events, all sorts of things. And it leads me as the kind of everyman explainer of all things Zoho. And yeah, that's where I am today, trying to gather all of the things that we're doing internally and share them with others.
Yeah. Well, I think that being an everyman or a woman explainer is, I mean, I feel like I sort of lived my life that way. And, I try to make complicated things less complicated and try to help people connect the dots in sort of a nerdy way. But, I know you're a nerd just like I am. We can't help it. The things that interest us and excite us. And I also think that I too have had a really non-traditional career path and ended up thinking I wanted to do one thing, ended up doing something completely different. And, I mean, that's kind of fun, really.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's very fun to sit across from engineers and get to tell them, hey, nobody cares about that thing you built, or hey, that thing is really cool. It's very fun. And yeah, it's great then connecting with other people and
Yeah.
hearing about, what they're trying to do, things that are going well, problems they're having around software fragmentation, for example, and then be able to give them some good news. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And hopefully I do a good job here today. So we'll
Oh,
see how well it goes.
I think you're going to be great. I think too that I've had engineers for clients for most of my career, and I love engineers. Engineers want to solve problems, they want to build things, they want to do all that sort of thing. And so, like you, I've sat across the table and said, "This is great, but if we don't do a good job of telling this story
Yeah.
and why it matters, nobody's ever going to know about it." So I think all of those things work together beautifully, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I love all the engineers I get to talk to, and they're, they know so much, they're so smart. And it is funny though. A lot of the sentences or a lot of the conversation is, this is great, but, and it's always that collaboration. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. All right, so Taylor, we're watching enterprise users drown in disjointed applications and duplicated data and rising subscription costs and workflows that sometimes break every time you switch tools. And so talk with me about, from Zoho's vantage point, how do you see this fragmentation problem And, I mean, you're in the trenches all day, every day, right? So I know
Mhm.
you have to see this fragmentation problem, but talk with me a little bit about not only how you see the fragmentation problem, but also why the team at Zoho decided that now was the moment to address this head on.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the fragmentation problem, it rears itself in a lot of, kind of ugly ways. So there are the day-to-day frustrations of users just not being able to do their job or having to take a lot of manual steps or kind of big extraneous processes of trying to complete what should be a relatively straightforward task. There's one dimension there. There's another dimension of then managing all of these different tools where administrators or operations teams or IT teams are trying to pull all of these things together, and they run into a number of frustrations and limitations and difficulties that then create additional problems when needing to train people and try to make sure that people just click the right button. And then from a business point of view, you have all of these vendors that you're working with where there's all these different contracts, all these different rules, there's different ways that you're procuring licenses,
Right.
there's just kind of a never-ending set of things that you're jumping through. Software industry loves to nickel and dime folks. You end up with different contracts ending in different cycles. You end up paying for things that you're not even going to be using anymore or that you never even got off the ground. It really is just kind of this big mess. And for a long time, we've called this, the integration Frankenstein problem, trying to take a whole bunch of different things, stitch them together, shoot some electricity through it, and hope it just works.
Right.
And that often is something that literally only just does work. Like it doesn't really do much more than that, and it's very expensive to keep it going. So
Yeah.
this has been on our radar for a long time, since 2017, really, when Zoho One as a product launched. This is the kind of thing we were talking about. And in this release, we're just continuing to push forward and make some really big steps toward unifying and simplifying the overall experience, the integrations, and then the intelligence that Zoho One offers.
Well, you kind of beat me to my next question. And that's really about Zoho One's latest update. So
Yeah.
we're going to dive into some specifics, but tell me broadly about this update and why it's so exciting.
Yeah, so it's very exciting because we're taking, like I said, this really big jump around these three different areas of experience, integration, and intelligence.
Okay.
And the key is that by tying these three things together at a high level and moving forward and making a lot of progress there, it really unlocks the power of the software and really removes a lot of the fragmentation and the difficulty that users are having. So
Okay.
things are organized in much more intuitive ways for end users, but also for administrators. Integrations are available that allow you to deliver on more outcomes or doing the different kinds of things that you need to be able to do across Zoho third-party apps, custom apps,
Okay.
whatever it is that you're deploying. And then obviously intelligence is really important these days with AI. So it's being able to tie that experience and those integrations together to really get to what we're calling unified intelligence, where you have all of these next generation capabilities being deeply integrated into existing features or capabilities. So it doesn't feel like it's just bolted on, but is
Yeah.
something that actually delivers value.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty big differentiator because a lot of what you do today does feel bolted on.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, Taylor, one of the things that stood out to me in this newest update is spaces and how spaces sort of reorganizes the entire software experience around the way people work instead of around the apps themselves. What was the thinking behind this shift, and how do you expect spaces to maybe change user behavior inside organizations that rely on Zoho One?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, Spaces is all about trying to break down the different application silos and data silos that get created. We
Okay.
live in a very, app-centric time or model, I guess, where there's all of these different companies that do their own app. You have to go out, get the application, integrate them, tie it all
Right.
together, and it means context switching and jumping around between those. So Zoho One has brought these together, and now in the Spaces interface, it has organized them in a way that allows us to continue to break down those barriers. So one way that we have thought about this, for example, is that in a home, you have personal spaces like bedrooms, you
Sure.
have living spaces or organizational or collaborative spaces with like living rooms and dining rooms. And then you have functional spaces with kitchens or laundry rooms where you're
Right.
doing particular tasks. So it's all about putting the right tools, appliances, apps, whatever we want to say, in the right place to make it very easy for people to then do the task or the thing they're trying to do. And when you think about just the pain of app switching, where you're moving from tool to tool, logging in, finding the different things that you need, it's a real challenge, and it really creates a lot of friction. So we're expecting a really big benefit by just being able to tie together the tools in the right way, and then not only depend on like deploying an application, but having even certain like modules from one application just deployed very easily as well, so you get to exactly what you need. And that way we're aligning more closely with the actual workflow that users are engaging in.
Yeah. What you need, where you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the
I mean,
idea.
I mean, it's really pretty simple, isn't it? As I've been playing around, I really like the boards feature too. And that feels like a direct response to kind of how modern work happens. And, people don't think in terms of apps, they think in terms of the tasks they have to get done and the approvals they need and the outcomes they're seeking.
Yeah.
How did this concept come to life? And what kind of customer workflows do you expect boards to reshape first?
Yeah, it's a great question. So yeah, you mentioned something like tasks. Tasks, if you need to find a task, you have to think, oh, well, what is the application or what is the context in which the task has been created or assigned? Which means that they're always going to be sorted through this kind of application lens, right? Where the task is always in a different app.
Right?
So the idea is that if we're building this unified system, what if we can look at tasks as their own lens and not think about the application, but think about just the core object rather. And so that is what we're doing with boards. Another, you mentioned, what is like one of the kind of big first like kind of use cases for this or first workflows. I think it really is around really kind of where board starts, which is the kind of dashboard idea. A lot of applications in like a home screen, for example, they have a kind of overview of different things. In Zoho One, we're pulling together data from a bunch of different tools to give someone a snapshot of their day, their calendar, their emails, their messages, tasks they might have, etc. But when we're thinking about getting our day going, sometimes we don't need to just see things we need to do. We also need to understand what's going on in the organization. So with boards, it's a two-click context switch basically to look at, say, department level dashboards, right? To
Oh,
understand
nice.
what's
Yeah.
going on with the work that we're doing, or maybe two more clicks to get an even broader or an even zoomed in view of what's going on. And this is powered by our business intelligence tool, Zoho Analytics, which has hundreds of pre-built reports and dashboards. All of the data in Zoho just automatically connects in. It
Yeah.
connects third-party data as well. So the overall the use case here is just I'm starting my day. What's going on with what I need to do?
Yeah.
What's the stuff I'm working on? What's the data that allows me to have context for why I'm working on it or who I need to talk to or what?
Right. Or what's my team working on?
Exactly.
As a manager, I don't have to stress and worry about where they are on a certain project that they're working on. I can just take a quick look.
Exactly. And so,
Yeah.
and with that, right, I'm sorry to draw this out, but
Yeah.
the idea that there is a starting place for work, that is something that doesn't really exist in this very fragmented world
Right.
that we're in. And having that starting place be able to contain so many different kinds of information that gets me going with the work I'm doing. And then again, switching right over into the full power of a BI tool, all within this kind of one interface. I mean, that's a very powerful change with
Yeah.
a starting point of how the workday begins.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, one of my favorite topics happens to be beyond CX, happens to be security. So, let's talk about security for a minute. And most IT leaders I speak with admit that they have no idea how all of their tools are connected, and oftentimes there's a very real lack of visibility, and that's a real productivity concern. It's also a significant security concern. So
Yeah.
talk with me, Taylor, if you would, about how Zoho's unified integration panel changes the equation on the security front, especially for IT teams. And what are you hearing in the field from your early adopters?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll start with the early adopter thing first, because this actually is a feature or a capability that we really heard a lot about from our customer advisory board.
Sure.
So we have that for Zoho One, and they really give us a lot of great insight into what we need to be doing. So when you hear the pains of how do I manage all these integrations, how
Yeah.
can I see them just in one view? How can Zoho advise me even on what integrations I might want to turn on based on the usage that I have? These are some of the initial thoughts that were coming up. So we were really glad to be able to respond to that feedback.
Yeah.
In this integrations panel, this unified integrations panel, there's a number of things that you can do that really, I think, change the game for administrators. One, just see which integrations are on, right? That's a great starting point. Just understanding how is data being connected between different applications.
Okay.
So having that high level view, which ones were recently created and who did that, right? Something now you could easily follow up with someone, hey, how does this work? Or have we documented this, etc. So lots of just very simple kind of housekeeping ideas to begin with. Being a little more sophisticated, though, there is, for example, a big list of Zoho applications, and it might say, for example, in the panel, like Zoho CRM and a 3, right? That means that there's 3 different integrations within Zoho that have been enabled that are connecting into CRM. You click
Okay.
on that, and then you get a view of what those tools are. You can then configure that, turn them on, turn them back off, whatever. And you have that for right now 18 different tools. So that is pretty significant. And then finally, a third component that's very cool that I think is very powerful for IT staff is we've brought in Zoho Flow into this panel.
Okay.
Zoho Flow is our integration platform. It's kind of like Zapier, integrates with over 1,000 different third-party services. So you can build and manage all of those flows right from within that panel. And the cool thing here is this is another example of breaking down application barriers.
Mhm.
Flow is its own standalone product that you could buy. In Zoho One, it's a part of Zoho One. And
Okay.
in Zoho One, it's not treated as its own separate service. It's treated as an important administrative tool that you use to connect data together and is a part of that centrally managed process. So I think this, kind of emphasizes some of the integration and experience stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Well, and it's that visibility is such an important part, for IT teams, for SecOps teams and stuff like that. Being able to see what's happening across that control plane is really, really key.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. So the smart offboarding example, when these updates were announced, really resonated because I think it solves a real and often painful workflow experience that spans multiple tools. And so, talk with me a little bit about smart offboarding, what this feature is, and what you're hearing from customers, and how they are responding to this idea of outcome-based integrations. And my last part of this question is, where do you see the biggest opportunities for this approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the smart offboarding, this is a great example of another pain point, another challenge that comes with all of the fragmentation that we're seeing in the industry, right? This is a
Okay.
simple one. You have an employee that's leaving, um, and you need to deal with that with all the tools that they've been assigned to. Maybe they're using a dozen different tools or something, right? Someone is going to have to go in and remove them from each of those tools, manage the license, deactivate the license if you can, reassign data, check on different reporting hierarchies. there's a whole bunch of steps that are going to have to happen to just get this person out of the system and make sure that the system is going to keep flowing and there's no weird, unexpected problems that are going to come up.
Right.
This takes a lot of time. So the idea of something that's just a outcome-based integration is really about how do we deliver the value that aligns with what a customer is trying to do or a problem that they're facing. We have a number of classic examples of how we've approached this in Zoho. So, for example, like a lead to cash process, right? You have a form on a website. We do the website, we have the form, it's all embedded easily, it flows into the CRM, you do the sales process, you create the quotes, you create the invoice, you get a signature, digitally signed, and then you send out a payments link, you receive the payment. There's a lot of integration that happens there across Zoho to make that possible. But
Right.
the reason we do it is because you have to connect all of those processes as a business if you're running. There's going to be
Sure.
handoffs between different teams. So we want to take responsibility for the outcome, for the thing that people are trying to do, rather than just say, hey, here's a piece of software we built, here's an API that we've added, you figure it out, right? So the more that we do this, in that we expand different capabilities, the depth and power of the integration, the more opportunities we have then to do the next step. And with AI, for example, we now have the ability to automate more steps of processes than before, thanks to LLMs, thanks to now what
Right.
we can do with unstructured data. So it's by having that foundation in place and thinking about the end-to-end outcome. The offboarding of a user is one example of that, that you then can layer more intelligence on top of that and make the process even more efficient and more enjoyable for the
Right.
people who are orchestrating it or doing it or involved in it, whatever we want
Right.
to say.
Yeah, no. And I'm sitting here thinking about all the times that I have to sort of rely on my memory or chase things and make sure I tell somebody that, this happened or this invoice was paid, be sure to,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I mean, we do spend a lot of our time chasing things that when they can be put into a workflow that, is sort of seamless, it makes a huge difference in how efficient we can go about our day and how enjoyable, you mentioned enjoyable, how enjoyable our work is.
Yeah, being very clear, right? Like, software is meant to make things better. I mean,
Right.
it's not meant to be this monstrous project that we have
Right.
to work
Time
on and
suck.
live with and get sucked into, right? I mean, sometimes I think we forget that the point is that we're supposed to go, that was good, I like that, and then move
Yeah.
on, So
Yeah.
yeah, enjoyment is important.
All right, Taylor. Now I'd like to touch on context for a moment. And as we know, we are at a moment in time when every vendor is trying to bolt AI onto their products. Zoho, however, is taking a completely different path. And this is by embedding Zia across the system in a way that's completely different and in a way that actually understands context. Why is this such a big deal?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that generally at Zoho, we take kind of an AI realist approach, and we have been happy to do things a little differently. There's a lot of organizations that are, or a few organizations, let's say, that are building these giant LLMs. There's a number of others that are doing all these partnerships, and it's kind of unclear how everything is going to shake out. As a private company, one that funds its own growth and manages all of its own infrastructure and data centers and a lot of the core technologies in those data centers, we have been very interested in LLMs, but we've gone really more of the small language model route, where we have, much smaller purpose-built models that are built to actually deliver some value, based on the kinds of things we know customers need to do. It
Right.
makes it easy for us to invest in the technology, and then it makes sure that we're actually going to be delivering something back. So that is one key difference in our approach here. And one of the coolest things that we're doing is we're in the next couple of months deploying what we're calling Ask Zia. And Ask Zia is our AI that will be able to, build reports and, answer questions like how many support tickets are assigned from this account or created from this account, et cetera. But it'll also be able to do cross-functional reporting as well. So tying, different data sets together to produce more complicated results. So a simple example would be, show me support tickets by our top 10 clients or 10 most valuable clients or something like that, right? Pinning technology here and why this is, all integrated in is that we already have Zoho Analytics, which is the BI tool I mentioned earlier,
Right.
that's pulling all of this data together. So we already can do cross-functional reporting, and the AI now is doing the query on top of that. So that's where the value is getting added from the AI. But
Okay.
then there's another layer that we have that's super important and fairly unique to us. Not many vendors do it, which is the directory layer. The directory layer understands all of the permission structures, all of the access rights that every user has across every tool, which means that when a user goes in and asks to build that report, the first thing that's happening is making sure that that user has access to that information, which the AI is then integrated into.
Yeah.
So it's creating the right kinds of fencing essentially
Well,
for.
governance there,
Yeah,
I mean, I think this is the governance and compliance issue, and I think that's really, really important.
totally. And when we talk with customers more and more, these are really the top of mind issues they have
Yeah.
around compliance. Can we make sure that our data is being stored in the way that we want and that there's the right level of access being granted, et cetera? So
Right.
this is something that we are baking in just from the very beginning. On top of that, Zia is also trained on the entire Zoho knowledge base, so it can answer questions about how to do things in certain products or why would I use this over this feature, etc.
Right.
We've also shown that we can do various kinds of orchestration where Zia can go in and build workflows or different kinds of process orchestration. So when you think about all of these components, being able to query and do cross-functional reporting, being able to do some process orchestration, being able to and also to answer questions about the tools itself, all while respecting all of the underlying access controls and governance models. This becomes a really, really powerful AI capability that is available across Zoho One.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very cool. Very cool. So, you touched on this just a minute ago, but I want to take a little bit more of a dive here. And one of Zoho's unique differentiators is that it controls the full technology stack.
Yeah.
How do you feel like this gives Zoho an advantage when it comes to delivering AI that is truly useful rather than just novel and bolted on here like we see in so many other instances?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's kind of a wild question too, though, right? Because our job is to provide cloud software services. That's our job. And you would think that for a lot of other companies, if you think that's your job, you would go, oh, well, I've got to do the underlying cloud infrastructure to do that service. I
Right.
can't just outsource that part of the business. But we feel very strongly that that's our job. So when it comes to AI, well, surely we need to build some more stuff and we need to create the kinds of efficiencies in the data center that we've already created with our cloud services. We need to make sure these things are deeply integrated and that we're providing and passing as much value to the customer as we can.
Right.
So that's really, I think, kind of our outlook. I think I sort of forgot your question because I got so excited about what I was saying. So please tell me if I missed something. But
No, I
fundamentally,
think that you did. I mean, what we
okay,
were talking about was just really the advantage of controlling that whole full
yeah.
tech stack.
Yeah, totally. And so being able to create those efficiencies. See, this is why I do the evangelist thing. I get so excited, and
That's
this is
good.
why the engineers love me because I get so excited about what they build. But the um, the core piece of it ultimately is that aside from being able to optimize, create efficiencies, and pass them to the customer, controlling the stack is what allows you to actually make technological breakthroughs. It's what allows you to actually integrate technology without having to just bolt it on,
Yeah.
right? And that is key if when we're talking about something like unified intelligence. I mentioned this earlier. We have this broad set of capabilities. We're managing the data. We're dealing with data governance. We have all of these integrations that are happening in a very deep level. We're then adding these homegrown LLMs into all of this, and all of this connects together to build, unified intelligence that actually has a purpose, that actually delivers value, and that is not something that no one can explain what it's going to cost or what you might be in for 2 years down the line, or
Right.
whatever, right? We can keep control of our business and make sure that we're doing right by customers.
Right. Cost. That's a big one.
Yeah,
And that leads
it
me
is.
right into the last, I'll tell you, I use this example on a regular basis. I have, like many of us do, I have a Microsoft Office subscription
Mhm.
that I have had, renewed for years. It covers, I mean, all my devices, and it's like a family subscription, but I'm the family that uses it because I have so many different devices.
Mhm.
And I got an email the other day that this subscription was renewing. No big deal. I totally expected. I'm not even paying any attention, right? You just get these emails. But my subscription, my little teeny tiny family subscription, went from $99 a year to $129 a year. No explanation. And it just, this is what your bill is now. And I thought, you know what, Microsoft, that is a big doggone increase. And what are you going to do? you
I
know,
know, I know.
Not-
That's what they're saying.
that's what they're saying. What are you going to do? And so when you extrapolate that out across an enterprise, and when so many technology vendors' attitude and behavior is much like what I experienced with Microsoft, well, here's your bill, suck it up and pay it.
Yep.
These costs are a very, very real thing, and it's something that really is a challenge for organizations. So this leads me to my final question of this episode. We are living in this period of escalating SaaS spend and increasing operational
Mhm.
complexity. But what I love is that Zoho has kept pricing for Zoho One at $37 per user per month, while dramatically expanding on a regular basis what the platform can do. So this is not normal. This is, we don't see this from other vendors. If you want this, you have to pay more. If you want this, you have to, I mean, every little thing that you want to do to add on to what the capabilities are, typically you have to pay more. Zoho is approaching this completely differently. Here's the price. We keep making it better, and we're not going to increase the price for these updates. So why is price stability so important for Zoho? And how does this latest round of updates to Zoho One reinforce Zoho's broader philosophy of delivering simplicity and value, um, and really serving customers in a truly meaningful way?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a great point that you've made. I don't have a fancy answer here. I think ultimately we just see this as our job. And you hired us to do a job for 37 bucks a user a month for Zoho One. We continue to do our job to make the product better and to solve the issues that we see people having, and we're going to just keep doing our job. It's like that's fundamentally the common sense kind of approach. I mean, um, yeah, I wish I could give you a much more sophisticated answer, but it's like that's just it. I mean,
Yeah,
we really just believe that that we've been hired to do a job. We're going to do it to the best of our ability.
yeah,
We offered a price that we could make money at long term, and we're committed to the long term. And we're really serious when we say we want to be a technology partner to our customers. We want to be a long-term partner or offer a long-term platform that you can grow on and that you can feel confident that you're going to grow on, and that you know what you're getting yourself into. I mean, it is like an industry standard that every time something new gets developed, there's a price for it. But
Right.
our goal is not to lock anyone into a contract, nickel and dime, or do anything. Our goal is to build the best software that we can, solve the most problems for our customer we can, deliver the most success to them, and help them grow and achieve all of their goals. Because that's our goal. That's just fundamentally what we want to do. And I think the big reason that we're able to do this is because we're private.
Yeah.
We've never taken any money, and we don't have anyone to pay back. We have no interest in going public. So our the only stakeholders that we really have to care about are our employees and our customers.
Yeah.
And our employees are making a good living, and we're hoping our customers do the same.
Speaking of customers, one of my favorite things ever to do is to either talk to customers directly, which we analysts get to do on a regular basis, or hear from customers at events. And at Zoho Day earlier this year, one of one of the customers who spoke to all of us was someone from the LA Times. And he was talking, and I can't remember if he was the CTO or the CIO or exactly what role that he played, but he was great because he said, let me just be honest here. When I went to my leadership team and said, I want to use Zoho and here's why, I mean, they kind of looked at me like, are you crazy? And, Zoho, in the big scheme of all of these major technology vendors, and you're going to go with Zoho. And, maybe people have heard of Zoho, maybe they haven't, who knows. But the point of the conversation, and what I never, ever forget, whether it's this individual's experience or any leader's experience as they're making a technology decision, right, is that you are putting your neck on the line in a very big way. And you are taking a leap of faith, and you are trusting a vendor, and you're entering into a partnership with that vendor. And what I heard from this guy from the LA Times, and what I hear regularly from other customers, is that they really view this isn't a technology purchase. This is a partnership. And this is, I'm placing my trust in this partnership. I'm choosing to walk this path with the team at Zoho because I trust that we will go on this journey together and continue to evolve together. And that working with the Zoho team really feels like I'm working with people, a collection of people who wake up every day thinking about how they can make my life better, or deliver more effectively, or solve problems that I or other leaders have. And I think that feeling about Zoho as a company is kind of imbued throughout your culture, and it's not at all hard to see it.
Yeah, well, that's a really very nice compliment, and I appreciate you bringing up that customer. Yeah, I mean, we have it on our website, right? I mean, it's your life's work powered by ours,
Yeah.
and I think it really starts with the leadership, given that
Yeah.
Zoho is a large company and it could have been sold a long time ago. If someone wanted to just cash out and go hang out on a beach, that opportunity has been there
Absolutely.
for many years. And it's the fact that, no, we wanna keep building. We want to keep trying to solve bigger problems. And we see that there is so much to play for because there is such fragmentation. There is
Yeah.
so many problems with the way that not only is software built, but the way that the whole software industry is funded and the way it has its own priorities.
Right.
So it really comes back to us, like with something like Zoho One, offering this unified experience, these integrations, this unified intelligence that we're driving toward. Because you're right, it is about building a partnership, and it is about thinking about those decision makers and buyers who are putting their reputation and sometimes their careers on the line
They
when
are.
they say, hey, we're going to go with the real outside of the box idea here. We're going to go with
Right.
Zoho. It's $37 a month. Treat her our our co-founder, he's talked about how every year at our software conference, Zaholics, the same customer would show up and tell him, I really need you to raise the price just so I can sleep a little bit better at night, just knowing that everything's going to be good, right? So that's a good sign, though, when you have customers complaining that they can't sleep because they're getting too good a deal.
That's a great problem to have.
Yeah, it is. And it creates its own problems that we'll continue to mitigate and address with awesome releases like this.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're just really excited about what we're doing with the product, because there is just so much to improve, I think, in the way that businesses are using software and getting value from it.
Well, the updates around Zoho One are incredibly exciting, and I am so grateful that you took time today to join me to walk through those. To our audience, and that is it for this episode of Experience Matters. I'm your host, Shelley Kramer, Principal Analyst here at Kramer&Co, and many, many thanks to my guest, Taylor Bachman, Senior Evangelist at Zoho, for joining me to talk about breaking this App-Sprawl cycle business and how Zoho is delivering unified workflows with Zoho One. Taylor, you've been amazing.
Thank you, Shelley. You've been amazing too. Really appreciate it. Happy to come back anytime. And I hope you have a great, holiday and great end of the year.
Excellent. Well, I will take you up on that, and we'll see you again next time. So with that, we're out. Thanks everyone for hanging around, and we'll see you here next time.